Ready to start your journey? Whether it's your first workout or you are a seasoned athlete, Endurance for Everyone Coaching wants to work with you. Our coaching team has worked with athletes from beginners to USAT national qualifiers and are comprised of experienced runners, cyclists, and triathletes who have a passion for healthy living and have been where you are. We offer comprehensive coaching programs from weekly support to basic consultation, all designed to help you achieve your goals. If you want to take your performance to the next level, look no further than Endurance for Everyone Coaching. Go to www.teamE4E.com and click on the coaching link or send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And let's get started.
Welcome to this week's Endurance for Everyone podcast.
The following program is for entertainment purposes only. Though the hosts of this show are certified Ironman coaches, their attempts at long-course triathlons and endurance events should not be taken as an endorsement for you to do something stupid too. You should make your own bad decisions, then podcast about it. Now, let's start the show.
Hey, this is John Harris.
And this is Rob BOZOVICH.
And Endurance is for Everyone, and this is the Endurance for Everyone podcast.
Hey, John, how you been?
Oh, I've been good. I'm good. How are you doing?
Oh, life is just fine and dandy. No complaints. That's it. No complaints up here in the north. So I had that opportunity to sit down with Chris, and I had sent you the file, and I'm sure after the last time I had sent you an interview and you said you listened to it, and then you didn't. I know you listened to it at least twice all the way through. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. I listened to parts of the last one. It wasn't that I totally didn't listen to it. When I was putting it together, I was listening to pieces of it. So it wasn't a total fib.
I listened to all of it, just not all of it.
I'm a busy man. You know.
Glad you can grace us with your presence here this evening, John.
There you go.
Yeah, so I thought it went pretty well, and Chris shared a lot of great information, and so forth. No real need to recap it. I figure we can just go ahead and just cut right to it if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I'm good with it. Just go ahead and play it, and I think it was a lot of good information. Came across really well. A lot of interesting stuff about the race. So
cool. Go ahead and drop that in now, and you and I will catch up on the back end.
Yep.
Hey guys, it's Rob here. I'm joined today with Kristoph Kocan. He's the director of the Dam Tri in Meadville, Pennsylvania, a race that you've heard me talk about many times. So John and I are going to be going up to do that this year. It'll be my 9th time doing the race out of 10 that they've put it on. Fondness in my heart for this race as it was my first triathlon. And as we go through the interview here with Kristoph, he'll let you know why, in his own words, everything else might seem easier by comparison because it's, they managed to figure out how to, put hills in the swim. So, Kristoph, thanks so much for being on with me. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, Rob.
Hey, no problem. Why don't you start off by telling us, a little bit about yourself? What do? You triathlete yourself, anything like that, and then we can, get into talking a little bit about the race.
Yeah, sure. Right now I'm a VP of operations at the Meadville YMCA. We're located, Northwest PA. I've been here for about 5 or 6 years. I was a volunteer for 6 years on the board before that. And the reason I share that is, I am a triathlete, although I haven't raced in a couple of years. But in 2008, I was training for events, and I was training out at the Woodcock area where we hold the race. And I came to our CEO at the time and said, we have the perfect venue for a race. And myself and 2 other volunteers that lived in the town here that were also training for different events, we talked them into letting us put on the first ever Dam Tri in 2008. We've kind of been with the Meadville, or associated with the Meadville YMCA ever since. My background as a triathlete, I was a former swimmer in high school back in the late 80s. And then I raced bikes for quite a while in the 90s. I hated running with a passion, though. I did my first triathlon at the age of, I believe, 35 in Oil City. And I think I came out of the water third, off the bike third, and thought this was easy, and then got crushed by everybody on the run, but was hooked after that. So that was around 2005 or 2006. From there until just a few years ago, I think my last race was Ironman Louisville, back when they had it in August, in 2015. But I tried to start the Dam Tri, coming from a racer's perspective and having been to several large events, and we wanted to bring that large event feel back to, like a small kind of hometown race.
Got it. Yeah. And then, so then, and forgive me, let me ask and just verify. The first year I did the race was 2009. I thought that was the first race. So did you guys started planning in 08? First year was 09, or did you guys have like a beta run the year or a trial run before that, or what happened there?
I'd have to look at the thing. I thought 2008 was our first year, so you might have missed the first year.
I thought the shirt said it was the first one.
This is our 10th year, so.
We could do math. Anyways, I thought I'd ask on that. So I thought it was the first one you put on. Maybe 08 was the first one. I got my timing wrong on that. Anyways, moving on there. Then, so now I know why and how you started it. We'll get a little more in a couple semantics there in a minute. But who's the race benefit?
The race benefits the Meadville YMCA Association. It's benefited them since the start. Mm-hmm. And what exactly it benefits is their annual scholarship campaign. So the way the YMCA will run an annual campaign each year, and it's to go out in the community and raise money, and then that money is given back by way of given discounted memberships or program fees or childcare to families or individuals that otherwise couldn't afford it. Overall, the Dam Tri has raised anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 a year for their scholarship campaign. The total that the Meadville Y raises is about $120,000 to $130,000 each year, mm-hmm. and we give back about $200,000 in discounted entry. So we actually give back more than we raise. But the Dam Tri is our largest raiser, as far as any single event.
That's cool. And one thing I noticed you guys have done, and I haven't participated, I should say, and you also have, so the Dam Tri is on, when I say that's the adult race, that's on Sunday. You guys also have a kids Tri on Saturday, day before. You want to talk about that for a second? I mean, just that's something I'm unfamiliar with, as I haven't been to it because I haven't had any children. My son is just now turning a year old, so eventually he will be there. But at this point, we haven't participated in any of that.
Yeah, so the Dam Tri Junior was started, I believe, in the third year of us running the Dam Tri, and it was put on by one of the original volunteers, and she kind of got involved with the Kiwanis in town, and she wanted to have a junior race. And we set everything up for the Dam Tri as far as the transition area and the tents and the registration area on Friday, and then it just kind of sits all day Saturday. And she said, hey, all this stuff is set up. Let's have a kids race. And we keep the kids race entirely in the state park. Or she kept the kids race entirely in the state park. So the Kiwanis ran that for the first 3 or 4 years, but for the last 2 years, they've kind of gotten out of it, and the Meadville YMCA has taken over running that race also. It's for kids ages 15 and under, and it varies in distance. I believe the 15-year-olds do a 6-mile bike and a 2-mile run and like a 250-yard swim, down to the 8 to 9-year-olds, which do like a 50-yard swim, a half-mile bike, and an 8-mile run. And then we have, for the 7 and under, we have a fun-only, they do a bike and run, like a little duathlon. But the whole kids race takes place most of the swim is in the Beachton area, with the exception of the oldest kids. And the entire bike and run takes place inside the park, so you're never out on public roads.
That's cool. That's great to hear.
That occurs Saturday before the event, and we get a fair number of people that come, and there's a campground right next to our race site. They usually sell out, and we get quite a few people that come and camp out or use their RVs and have kids race on Saturday, then they stick around Sunday for the adult race.
Yeah. And kind of tied with that, and not for anyone listening, they've heard John and I talk about it every year as well. That I've been out there. You guys have been associated, I believe, with the Allegheny College, and they offer lodging there for pretty cheap cost, I believe, like $15 or $20, and linens are extra. But you get to stay in a college dorm room, actually in their suite style rooms, and the night before the race. And I always thought that was unique. I've never seen that in any other race. Is that something that they came to you guys to do, or you guys reached out to them just trying to make it more convenient for the athletes, or how'd that come about?
Well, we and I say we meaning the people that founded the race. We trained up at the Allegheny pool, and we had connections with the college. So I forget who started it, but I think it was been since the very original year. We've kind of had a little partnership with Allegheny. In addition to them providing those low-cost rooms, all the white tents, the tables, the chairs, they supply all that for basically little or no cost, so we don't have to rent it as kind of a way to get credit for sponsoring the event. But yeah, it's kind of a unique feature. The college is located, it's under 4 miles from the race site, and it's actually only about a mile till you're actually on the bike course from the college. So it's just a couple-minute drive. It's a really nice feature to have those rooms for $20 a night, located right next to the race site, basically.
Right. I always thought, because I've taken advantage of it every year, and like I said, since I started going, 9-10 years ago, they've been available, and I thought it was super convenient. And one of the things I like, and I hate to say it this way, because they early on they're like, hey, checkout is blank, but they just give you a key and say leave the key in the room when you're done. I've always gone back and showered there after the race. Not 8 years, and no one's ever yelled at me. I thought that was really nice, because none of the hotels in the area would give you a late enough checkout to do that as well. So it's nice to be able, like for me, since I'm traveling a few hours once I leave there, to be able to get cleaned up afterwards. So, and so I never had a bit. Good.
That's good to know. I never knew they let you do that. I've never personally stayed in the rooms. I live just a few minutes from the course, but I've heard a lot of good things. The first year we did it, I do remember they were in the older dorms, and they weren't air conditioning, and we had a few people complain that they were hot, but I think at that time they only charged like $10 a night, and people didn't complain that much actually. But yeah, it is a really nice benefit we have just because of our relationship with the college to be able to offer that up to our racers.
Yeah, I like it. I appreciate it, and very much would appreciate you guys continuing to do it.
That link will be up probably within the next few weeks on the website. There'll be a register here link to go to the college. So, if your listeners are logging on to the website and trying to figure out how to do that, it's not active yet. And as soon as I get that from Allegheny College, we'll post that up. And it'll be on our Facebook page as well.
Excellent. And then something and I've never paid attention, and this wasn't on the list of questions, but it's simple. Registration is open now for your race. Are there any price changes at any time for, like a buy-in early, or is it kind of like one set price now through whenever registration closes?
No, there is a price increase on April 1st, and then there's another one on June 1st. I can't remember off the top of my head if it's $5 for the sprint, $10 for the Olympic, but we try to encourage people to register ahead of time, to just kind of get a feel for what supplies, T-shirts, et cetera, we're going to need. One thing we did change this year, it's been our experience from putting on the event. It's hard to order supplies ahead of time, especially with regard to T-shirts. So what we did this year is we, instead of raising the prices, which we haven't done in like 3 years, we felt it was a little bit due for a price increase for the event. So what we did instead was we froze the prices. It's the same entry fee as last year, but this year we made the T-shirt optional for an extra fee. But we also put a deadline on there of, I believe it's a week and a half before the race, because what we found in the past is, we try and order enough so that everybody on race day has their shirts, but when we've tried to order tight, we get bombarded with entries the final week, and we end up having to back order shirts. Or like last year, we pre-ordered shirts and it rained the entire week, and we didn't get as many entries as we expected, and we had boxes of T-shirts left over. So to try and keep the price and the expenses, under control, that is probably the only change we've done to the registration in the last 3 years is just make the T-shirt an optional extra this year.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I've race director for 5K here in town, and it's the same deal. I mean, everybody wants to sign up 2 days before, and then they show up and they're like, "Oh, I want a shirt." I'm like, the shirt deadline was 2 weeks ago, because they don't grow on trees, and nobody wants last year's shirt next year. So.
Exactly.
I get that. Have you noticed, has the triathlon been growing in field, shrinking, staying about the same? What have you been noticing about the sport and this race venue in particular?
In regards to our race, I would say we're pretty steady. It seems like we have a pretty loyal crowd. Our high was in our third year. I believe we had 310 total. Last year, we were only at like 230. But the weather really killed us last year. We average about 70 to 75 entries the week of. People, I used to do it when I raced. They wait until the last minute. They look at the weather. They decide if they're going to go up or not. And then they register Thursday, Friday before the race. Last year, it rained almost every single day right up till, I think it actually rained Saturday on the junior race. I think we had 15 entries the week of. So we really took a hit on those week of entries because of the weather. I think a lot of people just, were looking at the forecast saying, it's not worth it. But we've been averaging right in the 275 to 280, people the last 4 years, pretty steady with the exception of last year. So I would say I think it's kind of leveled out. We'd like to see it grow a little bit. We can hold about 350 to 400 people comfortably, and that's always our goal, is to try and get as many as we can within reason, and not overcrowd the parking and or course.
Right. That's good to know. And then something not on, and just a side here, and I'll say it this way: our listeners have heard me say, like, I come to do the race, and I've got entry into USAT Nationals by placing in my age group here. So this is and always has been a USAT certified venue. Is that something that once you have it, you have it? Is that a hard process to go through and so forth? I mean, because see, some races, most of them are, but not everyone is. Do they come out and check out the course, or like what's that entail for you guys?
Well, the first year we did it, we were not USAT certified. But being a USAT member myself and going to a lot of certified races, I've been to some really good non-certified races, and I've been to some really bad certified races. So it doesn't guarantee you a good race, in my opinion. But what it does do, I think, is give that little bit of sense of legitimacy and or reason for people to travel, just like you stated, so that you can use it for qualifying for your All-American status or age group to get into the nationals, et cetera. So ever since the second year we've been certified, basically the process is we have to submit insurance certificates, we have to pay a little bit of a fee, then we have to submit detailed course maps, emergency plans, transition maps. It's a process that we have to do every year, but it's all done online through USAT, and I've done it now 8 years in a row, so it's gotten a little easier. But they don't actually come out and inspect the thing, although they do state that they could. In our 8 years, they've never come to the site. But you have to meet certain standards with regards to safety, traffic control, registration, the waivers. There's a long checklist they have, and you just go down through and do all the information, and then you get your certification number. Then after the race, you have a short time to turn in all the race day memberships for people who applied for those, the results, et cetera, and upload them to the site so that they can be, turned into the individual's rankings.
Right. Got it. Yeah, that's good to know. What would you say is from the race director standpoint, or as an athlete, since you've seen a bunch of different venues at different lengths, what's fun or unique about this race that you would put out there, like to try to get people to come and do it?
Sure. When we set the race up, we set it up to be, like I said, we wanted the big ticket feel, but in the small venue, affordable price. And, I said that going, myself and the other two people that founded it, we've been to multiple Ironman, large HFP over in Ohio events, and we wanted to bring that feel to our race. So some of the little things we did, like the check-in process, the actual fence around transition. I mean, I've done dozens of triathlons where there's no fence and people are wandering all through transition, people checking in and out. We wanted to bring that all to our event. As far as the course, like you said, we made the swim uphill. Everybody jokes about that, by way of the long run out of the swim exit to transition. But we didn't set it up as an easy course, as I'm sure you can.
Can I ask one thing? I don't want to cut you off there, but I've noticed this, and it's something I've never known, and that is, I know you guys, and we joke about the swim uphill because there is that long run, but you guys always have a mat right there, either at water's edge and so forth, and I know there's some mats farther up. So swim ends right when you get out of water. Does that start transition, or do you guys net out the time running up the hill, or is that just in the T1 time, or what happens there?
No, because we offer the prizes for the fastest swim time, bike time, and run time in the Olympic. Mm-hmm. We wanted to have your swim time stop as soon as you got out of the water. So the mat down on the beach stops your swim and starts T1.
Okay.
When you run up the long hill, that's all in your T1 time. That's why everybody's usually even the fastest people are usually about 90 seconds to 2 minutes, which, for some of the elite athletes is really long. The mat you run across just before you go into transition, when you're coming out of the swim, that is actually inactive until the last swimmer is out.
Gotcha.
So that's your bike exit mat. It's a little bit confusing because people see that second mat there. But yeah, your swim time stops, just a few feet out of the water down by the beach, and your run up the hill is all part of your T1 time.
Gotcha.
But anyway, So back to the what makes ours from unique, or what we tried to bring to the race, is we wanted to kind of get a sense of accomplishment where people after the event said, holy cow, that was hard, but I did it. We wanted to make it tough, but
my story is perfect, and that said, this was my first one, and my times have gotten better through the years. But my first time, and it was 09 as the results. I had a 1:37, and I remember, crossing the finish line, out of breath, heaving, huffing and puffing, could barely speak. And somebody said, "Well, how was it?" And my response was, between gasp breaths, "That sucked. Can't wait to do it again."
Yeah, we get a lot of that. We didn't really market it as hard the first year, and we had a lot of people in the comments afterwards saying, when were the hills going to end? We've kind of got a reputation now of being a tough event. When you leave the water, you have the quarter-mile run slightly uphill to transition, but then when you get on your bike, you have about a half-mile climb out of the park, and then you turn right and you have a 3-mile climb, to the top of the hill by the fairground. So the first almost 4 miles is all slightly up or uphill. It's not slightly uphill. We have a couple good climbs in there. And then the run, the run, I think, is what really makes our event, especially for the Olympic, because it's, through the park, it's on private roads, it's on some crushed gravel trail. But when you're doing the Olympic, you get the running all the way across the dam and back, which is a mile-long paved dam that overlooks the reservoir where you swam earlier in the day. And I think it's a pretty impressive, fun run, in my opinion. And it's got some hills in it, obviously too.
I agree. I like the course, and I'll come back to it because I want to do maybe a little course discussion with you at some point. But that being said, I remember like years, and I don't know, I'm going to make them up because I'm going to be wrong on it. I'm going to say 1 and 3. Like when you came out of bike transition to go to the run, you kind of at first ducked almost through, like felt like some weeds, and cut through this parking lot to go out onto those trails that you had talked about. And then I remember you changed it one year in there because there was, I'm going to say it was wet. It had rained, I guess, the week. So you guys redirected so we weren't ankle deep in mud. Wasn't making an adventure race. And but I forget, let's say year 4. I forget what it was. That was like the first year. I'm like, hey, I really feel like I know everything. I've done this. I got my systems down. And you guys had, when I say permanently changed the run course, so instead of kind of coming right out of transition, you went left, back out through the parking lot, up a hill, and so forth. And I remember, like, I didn't. And it must have been you that I had said it to, you know what I mean? I'm running, and I looked at somebody that looked official, and I'm like, I don't remember this, or I didn't know this. And the response was, it was covered in the pre-race meeting, and that was the first year I had like not gone to the pre-race meeting, so I was like very humbled, like, oh, okay, yeah, sorry about that. So,
yeah, the original run, like you said, you exit transition, and there was a path to the parking lot across from the transition through the wooded area, and it's a nice path. It's a a little grassy area, but it does get wet. And what we found was if it rains a lot, the week or 2 weeks before the event, there's some standing water in there. And we actually had one year where a girl coming in to finish lost her shoe and it never resurfaced. We decided to permanently change the run so that even if it's dry, we don't have to worry about that, like the week of. So the run was switched. You still have a good climb in the first quarter mile. What the new run course does, though, is I think the finish is a lot easier. The old run course, you in the last mile you ran down a little hill, turned around, went back up a hill, and then had a little bit of a downhill to the finish. The new run course, all the hills are in the first half pretty much, and then it's pretty much flat to downhill to the finish. So I think the run course got a little bit easier actually, but we made that permanent change because of the wet area, like you mentioned.
Having gone, when I say from worst to first in years of racing here, like I said, using this as a qualifier for me, one of the things I said I like it is coming out the new, I'm using air quotes, the new run course because it's been there for years now. Like you said, there's an uphill, you come right out of the gate onto that run and you're like, man, this kind of sucks. And then you come across and then you go down into that parking lot and back up. And I don't quite know the distance on it. Let's say it's, I don't know, you'd probably know, quarter mile down, quarter mile back out. I like that a lot because when you're behind, you can see all the people coming back up the hill, so you know roughly how far you are behind somebody if you're trying to catch them. Likewise, if you're in front of somebody, you get to see that on that first out and back. You can see how close your next competitor is if that's something that's important to you. And then that too, though, is like you said, you're coming at that point. If you're in the lead, I'll say you're coming up the hill. They're going down the hill, so they're going to be a little quicker to the bottom. You're going to be a little slower to the top, but you still get a good adjustment on, okay, I'm 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes ahead. And then the course does level out and becomes pretty competitive there through, like you had said, the crushed limestone, the scenic. I've never experienced any water, any roots or anything. You can go pretty quick through that wooded section, I think. So, and that's pretty nice there.
Yeah, the wooded section when you get off the dam or even going across the meadow to the dam is all a real nice trail. I mean, it's the real fine crushed limestone. The park does a great job of getting it in shape the week before, and they kind of take pride in the park because it kind of showcases it for the county. But yeah, when people hear crushed trail, they think of an Xterra race or they need to bring their off-road shoes. And I say, no, you can wear racing flats if you want. I mean, it's in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I can attest to that, no doubt. Other course changes here, and you and I discussed it. I remember when I did the Olympic, the 1 year, the second year that I had done the race, which had have been 2010. It was a 2-loop course, and then I feel like it had changed, and on your website it looks like it might be changed back at this point. And I love, and I'll say it affectionately, and you had said that it might be going back to the change course. We'll get there in a second, but the two looper, when you're just doing the sprint, as you said, the first, I always say the first 4 miles is uphill until you call it I guess it's the fairgrounds. I always say until you get to the horse farm, because there's always a horse show going on, or horse trailers there, and that's when you're making that first right, so to say. But halfway out, you're coming down these rollers, and then you have to hit the brakes for the Olympic on the second loop, make a hard right down into this sub loop that you do, and you do this little sub loop. Then you come right back out, basically at the bottom of a hill, turn right, have to go back up it, and it's a pretty substantial grading in there, I believe. Are you guys doing that 2-loop course this year? Or are you going back to your amended 1-loop course, or what are we looking at there?
Yeah, so the 2-loop course we had for the first 3 or 4 years, I personally wasn't a huge fan of it, mostly because, for 2 reasons. Number one, every year, no matter how much we talked about it at the pre-race, or had signs or someone telling people to do the little, I always called it the bonus loop on their second Olympic, or their second time around the lake doing the Olympic, we'd have someone miss it. And then the other thing I didn't like was you did the bonus loop, but like you said, as you come down a pretty steep hill and you had to make a hard right back onto the main course, you were basically thrown into about a 10% climb, right off the bat, and you were rejoining you might be catching some lap traffic or slower traffic. So we went 3 years ago, I believe, or maybe 4 years ago even, to where the Olympic did one big loop. It was a little bit more work logistically, as in we had more intersections to patrol, and we were putting racers, 15 miles away from the, race site, where the 2-loop course, everything was right around the lake. But the 1-loop course, I think, is a lot safer. It's from a racer's perspective, it's cleaner. You're not rejoining lap traffic and wondering, are they on the first loop, the second loop, et cetera. And it's less turns, less chances to get lost on it. So we permanently made the switch to the 1-loop course. However, last year, PennDOT had a bridge out on our 1-loop course. So we were forced to go back to the 2-loop. We have contacted PennDOT already this year. I'm just waiting for confirmation that there won't be any construction on the 1-loop course for the Olympic, and the plan is to stay with the 1-loop course.
Excellent. Good to know. And by the time this goes live, that may actually be out on your website, because we're recording this a little bit in advance of when it's going to go out, so we might even know that answer and have it up there, which would be nice. Yes. The only other thing I was going to go over here before we go to wrap up this part here is I know you guys a few years ago had, when I say joined, or they became part of a series with the Edinburgh Triathlon, and it became the Kilted Beaver, which I thought was just hilarious for that medal. And so I did it, and then the Edinburgh Tri looks like it dropped this year. I mean, I got that email notice that said that they're done, and now it says it's coming back. But I do know, I thought I'd received some correspondence about you guys being part of a series with Big Fish Tri up out of New York. Can you talk about that for a little bit? Like what's in with that and so forth?
Yeah, 3 years ago, we tried to partner with Edinburgh, to try and help both races. I've done Edinburgh, half a dozen times. It's a nice little race. The girl that was running it up until this year is actually one of the athletes I coach. I have about a half a dozen triathletes that, I don't race much anymore, but I still coach. And she took it over a few years ago. So since I knew her and I got to talking, and we said, let's partner and do some type of a series, give an award for the fastest combined times. So we did that. And then she was friends with the race director up at Big Fish, and we decided to make it like a 3-way series last year. Unfortunately, both of us agreed after the Big Fish race. We went through the rosters, saw the names of the people that did it, saw the names of the people that we got new. I think we picked up like 3 new people by partnering with the big fish. So we decided as a collective last year, we would still promote their race, but it wasn't worth the extra effort to, we didn't really get anything out of it. I think they got a few more entries up in big fish, but we didn't see any new people, any growth. And I don't think Edinburgh did either. So the original plan was just to keep it, a little kind of partnership between Brianne and I, between our 2 races until they canceled for this year. But like you mentioned, I hear they are potentially back on again for 2019. So as it stands now, we are back to a standalone event. However, I have been having some communications with Joella Baker out of Get Fit Families, and she does the Mighty Moraine Man down in Butler. And, her and I have been friends for years. She brings a pretty big contingency up to our race. So we are still trying to finalize if we can do just some little thing to recognize people that do both our races and give athletes a little bit extra incentive, to sign up for 2 local races.
Cool. Well, hey, at this point, is there? I've gone through all my list of questions here. Is there anything else that you would like to interject or share about the race here?
One of the other things I guess we didn't talk about is we offer we have the age group waves, obviously, like most races, but instead of just picking the top 3 out of the age group, we wanted to recognize the elite athletes that come and do our races. So from the start, we always wanted to have like a special wave for them. So sometimes people have asked, well, why do you have this separate wave that goes off no matter of their age before everyone else? And that's our elite wave, where we send all the men and women. They're racing for top 3 only. They're not eligible for any age group awards. And we wanted to send them all off first while the course was clear and let them race each other, because there's a lot of strategy that goes into when you're racing at the front of the pack. So we want it to be a race that's welcome to everyone, all abilities, whether it's a first-time racer or a seasoned age grouper. But we also wanted to tap into we have some pretty good athletes in this area in Western PA and Ohio and New York. And we wanted to give them a reason to come and kind of showcase their talents. So we've always, and we will continue to do that. We have, prize money for first, second, and third place. They get cash prizes. And then anybody that knows our race knows we have someone custom make a beaver trophy for them each year. And that's been, a draw to a lot of the people. They want to win the beaver trophy and put it on their mantle. So we try to, we want to be a race that is viewed by all athletes, whether it's your first timer or your elite racing for cash and overall first place. We want you to want to come do our race.
Got it. Sounds good, and I think that's a great place to end this. I want to go ahead and thank you once again for coming on and sharing all this. At any point in the future, if you have anything else you want to come and you have my contact information, we can definitely get you back on.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Rob.
Hey, thank you. Well, hey, John, previously we had told the group here, the listeners, that we were going to kind of do a little bit of a turn by turn of the course. And yeah, is that something you want to know a little bit about, I guess?
Yeah. Let's hear more about it.
Okay. Well, instead of doing it live, I just want to let you know I actually have a little bit more with Chris. I actually went through turn by turn, but also a little bit of a year by year history of it. So I'm going to go ahead and drop another sound file in now, and then you'll get to hear all about it, me describing the race to the guy that created it.
Perfect.
Hey, it's Rob. I still have Kristoph on with me, and what we're going to do is you heard us talk a little bit about the course, but we're going to kind of do a turn-by-turn walkthrough, if you will, and some of the things that I like personally as an athlete, and some of the things I don't like so much, and he could maybe interject and let us know why they are that way and so forth. Like as you heard us say, it's 4 miles from the college, and that's where I generally end up staying, which even at that, it's probably only 6 miles from the hotel. So it's not that far to get, to get to the race course. I like the fact that, hey, I can swing right through downtown, Meadville. I get a cup of coffee on my way up to the race venue. And one thing I personally like, and I guess it's your choice as the venue to do it, is you don't assign your spots in transition, and so I'm always there early, like 20 minutes, half hour before transition opens, to make sure that I can get the spot I want, because I like to set up right on the end of whatever rack I'm in. Do you guys keep it that way for that reason, or or is it easier than putting the numbers out there, or what do you guys do?
Yeah, so we set up transition where each rack has an assigned number group, but you're not assigned a spot on that rack. The reason we did that is we wanted all the sprint people on one side of transition, all the Olympic on the other. But then if you pay attention to those around you, you'll see they're all in your age group. And we did that so when you come into transition, you can kind of get a gauge for, are there a lot of bikes there already, or are you the first one back, and kind of see how you're doing. But we didn't want to leave it an open transition where you just picked wherever you want. So we grouped the elite athletes together, and then we group all the Olympic on one side, sprint on the other. Then within those two races, you're assigned a rack, but yes, it is first come, first serve on your rack. We also put the big letters on the ends of the rack because we know sprinting down the center of transition, you're looking for the big red G, then you know where your bike is versus trying to count racks and figure out. We've seen people wander around lost looking for their stuff.
Where's my bike? I can't find it. Well, eventually it'll be the only one there.
Yeah. So it's we've seen it happen before. So
yeah. And then that's transition, bike, and then transition in the morning. You go down to the swim. You guys, and I've seen races do it differently. You guys put off, as you said, the elites first, then you put off the Olympic, and then what is it, about 40 minutes later is when the sprint goes off. And I like how you do that. I've seen races where they do it opposite. They do it sprint first, which, hey, it's nice to get in, get done, get going. But I'm assuming that's so you guys don't have to keep the course open as long, because basically the last Olympic guys are coming in from the swim before the first sprint people really go off, and then you're bringing your kayaks in and so forth. So I'm assuming you do that for a time measure, just to so you don't have to keep everybody out there as long.
Well, the main reason we do it that way is the road down into the race area, the park road, is a little bit narrow, and as you know, it's we make it one-way traffic. So in the morning we make it one way with bikes going out only, and we control the cars coming in with people with radios on each end. And then we actually have it timed so that we know when the last the last sprint biker is going out. We have about 10 to 12 minutes before the first sprint or Olympic biker starts to come in, because of that time difference.
With one exception, I'm going to say, because that would have been probably 2 years ago, and I have to apologize. I brought friends to this race. I've got a couple that have been up on the podium, first, second place, a couple of us mid-packers. But if you remember about 2 years ago, there was one guy that was in the water for like ever. That was my friend. I remember. And he made friends with all your kayakers, because and being said is he went off in the first group of sprint triathletes going out, and he was a solid 10 minutes or so behind, I believe, the last lady coming out of the water. And I say it that way because you send off men under a certain age, men over a certain age, then women under, then women over. And he was, when I say, DFL out of the swim, he was the last one coming out. He made up for it with a pretty strong bike and run, but
Right.
Yeah.
No, the staging of the sprint first and the Olympic, like I said, we've done a lot of charts, and we know about when the last biker will be going out and then the last swimmer will be coming in, and we don't want them overlapping. And I think in the 9 years, twice we've had that happen. 1 year, I think it was might have even been the first year, we had someone do the Olympic swim and they took almost an hour. So there has been occasions, and we're equipped to handle, hey, all the bike traffic is coming back into the park now, but we have one person coming out. We can handle that. What we don't want is two-way traffic on that road.
Gotcha. Yeah. So then you get on the swim. You run up the hill. We've said that, so it ain't surprising here. You get your bike. You head out. You head up the hill. And I remember, like I said, the first year I did it, it seemed like it was like 17 miles just to get out that first hill, because it seems to me it's pretty significantly steep to get out of the park. But then, and I say you're into your typical Pennsylvania hills, and you might know the exact distance. To me, it's about between maybe 3-4 miles. You have roller hills, but when you look at the GPS file afterwards, you can see that you are consistently going uphill until about, like I said, mile 3-4, I want to say. You turn right out at the fairgrounds. I call it the horse park because there's always horse trailers there. But what I really like about it is, everyone's doing the same thing, and it seems like there's always a headwind going out those 3 miles, but then you turn, you make 2 right turns, and you're coming back, and it seems like you have about a mile of a downhill with a tailwind. And I usually get a pretty good speed. My personal race strategy, a lot of people kind of coast and refresh their legs. I tuck arrow and I just pedal. And then, there's one turn in there, one left, I should say. You pop down a little bit of a roller, but if you get enough speed, you come right over it. Past that, is on your left, there's that volunteer fire department, I believe. Then you turn right out on that main road, and then you have another mile and a half. And when I say downhill, you're not coasting down it at 30 miles an hour, but you can keep a good rhythm. I mean, I keep a good 80 to maybe 95 cadence. And I can personally, I sustain probably 30, 35 miles per hour down that hill. I really, really, really like that. And then it levels off for a nice, good spot. Turn right by the ice cream shop. What do you have there? Maybe another half mile. And then when I say it's what I feel is the most substantial hill in the race, because now what are we, about 7-8 miles in? And then that hill's got to be every bit of 3/4 of a mile. I mean, how far is it kind of climbing back up on top there?
Do you mean the one by the dam?
Correct.
Yeah, so you're pretty much spot on with your course assessment. It's about 3 3/4 miles to the fairgrounds, which is, we tell people, hey, you got a 3+ mile climb right out of transition. It's hard to get in a rhythm. There's only 1 or 2 short stretches where you can even get in your aero bars. You're pretty much climbing the whole time. But then you have the fast downhill section on Route 86 out on the main road, as you call it. And then that's where the old course, everybody, Olympic and sprint, turned right at the ice cream stand. And then you have the nice little climb, I call it little, but you have the nice climb by the up past the dam, where you could actually look to your right and you'll see the dam where the Olympic runners come down and turn around. And then you continue around, and if you're doing the Olympic course or sprint course, you go past the dam, it's slightly uphill, you turn right, you go down over the causeway, you have that one little last climb right at the end before you get into the park around the right-hand bend, which
you call it the causeway. That's what I'm going to say is it's not the dam, but you have the real dam that the people are running on, but it's almost like another level of the dam. Like you said, that's the longest, and if there's always windy there because you got kind of water on both sides, nothing to block the, like you said, it's kind of flat, and you have that little bit. I call it it's a Pennsylvania roller. I mean, it's if you're got less than a minute. You pedal maybe a minute 30, and then you're to the top, and now you're turning right back down in. And personally, what I do, and I saw some maybe it was the elites doing it. I can't do the flying mount in transition, obviously at the mount line, with my shoes clipped to my bike. I still carry them, run out to the mount line, put them on, but I do take that opportunity when I hit the top of the hill coming back down into the entrance to the park, I do reach down, unbuckle my shoes, put my feet on top of my pedals, because it's a downhill. When I say steep downhill now, it's enough that you can get momentum. You don't really need to pedal too much to get back down into transition. And I find that convenient for that last half mile or quarter mile or whatever it is. I'm actually unclipped feet on the shoes and still maintain a decent speed getting back down in there.
Yeah, so we've talked about the sprint course pretty much, and it's interesting you've brought up the mounting your bike with your shoes on. When I race, I always left my shoes on the bike and, pedaled up to speed, 20 mile an hour plus, and then reached down and put my feet in my shoes. Our race, when you get on your bike at the mount line, you only have about 100 yards or less before you make that right-hand turn and you start your climb. So if you don't get your shoes on your feet, it really isn't conducive to that. So I see more athletes than not, just put their shoes on in transition, because you get on your bike, you pedal past the radio guy there and you're climbing. You don't have a lot of time. But yeah, coming down into the park, backing up to the causeway right before you get to the park, you can hit that causeway easily doing 30 miles an hour coming on that hill. You go over the bridge and then you have that little, like you said, about a minute and a half climb, but it's just enough to, take you down to about 15 or 13 mile an hour, climbing up around the bend. But then you do have the nice coasting down into the transition, to end the bike.
Yeah.
So it is definitely it's a technical course with some turns, and it's a tough course. I would say the sprint has about 600 or 700 feet of climbing, and I know the Olympic course, regardless of which loop we do, is around, I think, 16 or 1800 feet of climbing, which is a fair amount for a race.
Yes, very much. And you and I were talking off mic there, and I said, because I'm always talking about times and comparison, and I can't. We were discussing it, my co-host and I, on the last show. Was debating if I'm going to do the sprint of the Olympics. I want to try to get a nationals bid again. And that's what he says. Well, what did you do when you did this as the Olympic? I said, listen, I've got to throw out this race completely out as the outlier. 2 reasons. When I did it, 1, it was very hot. 2, I was very much heavier, 9 years ago when I did it. But, I'm now usually knocking on the door about a 220 or so Olympic. My time in this course was 3:18, which should have been more closer to maybe maybe a high 240 or so in comparison, because that first, if I say, hey, I'm a faster runner now and I'm lighter, but also that the year I did it was just that extremely brutally hot year. I mean, it was humid, it was muggy, and so forth. What were you saying was kind of your point of pride on this, on the Olympic course?
Yeah, we've never had any of our elite athletes break 2 hours. One of the Mehans out of Pittsburgh was pretty close. He was, I want to say, 2 hours, 1 minute, and some odd seconds. But, that's kind of been my benchmark, is that I start watching the clock around 1:55, or I start watching the first elite guy heading out onto the run, and I'm thinking, okay, if he runs a 34, 35 minute 10K, is he going to break 2 hours or not? And it's not been done yet. I'd like to see someone do it. It's kind of, a little point of pride, race director's revenge, to sit there and say, well, here's my course, come break 2 hours.
Come and bring it. See what you can do.
Yeah. And I've done Olympics that, where you have a whole field under 2 hours, not a whole field, but your top 10 guys racing in the age group and stuff, are under 10 hours, or I'm sorry, 2 hours. And there's something to be said that you've broken that mark. But it's, like I said, it's not your average, fast age grouper. I think is going to be in your, like you say, 215 to 220 range, and they're probably going to add a good 10 to 12 minutes on our course between the bike and the run.
Yeah. And the run, we had covered it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, personally, when I was training hard and racing a lot, I could do an Olympic course, an average course around here in under an hour. And I've gone out there personally and started that transition on just a training ride and tried to hammer and not saving anything for the run afterwards. I think my personal best is like a 102 or a 103 on the course, but that's like time trialing it. So in an Olympic race, I've gone 56, 57 on a flat course. So that tells you, saving up for the run, obviously, but that tells you a little bit of how hard it is.
Do you know how much? 'Cause it's hard to do a turn by turn on the run without really much of a description. Hey, there's a couple hills in there, is the best way to say it. But there is a decent amount of flat, especially like you said. If you're doing the Olympic, you're going out and back across that breast, and it's a mile one way. So you have 2 miles of completely dead flat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are hills, but there are also some very flat parts of the course. And, hey, what goes up must come down. It isn't like you go up a hill and then, and you're ending on the top. You come out of transition, the finish line is right there on the other side. So whenever you go up the hill to start the run, you're coming back down it at the end, which helps, helps your time there. That, you definitely do a negative split with that. Do you know how much elevation change roughly that you might have in the runs, or is that something you guys haven't looked at?
I did have it looked at. I'm going to say off the top of my head about 300 feet maybe. But like you mentioned, you have 2 pretty significant climbs within the first mile and a half. You have the climb right out of transition, then you turn right, you go a little bit, then you turn right, and you go down into the parking area and come back up that hill. I think the 1 mile marker is down at the bottom of that parking area. But, after that, you have a few small gradients, and then you get on the dam. It's a mile back over on the dam. But when you come off the dam and you go through the meadow, and then you go back into the woods, that path through the woods is all slightly uphill, but it's over the course of about a mile. You almost don't even notice it, and you're finally running in some shade. And I always thought that was actually a fast part of the course. And then once you come out of the woods, you've got about 3/4 of a mile all downhill to the finish line, which does make for a nice fast finish.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better. I agree implicitly with exactly how you said it there. So cool. I appreciate it. This part 2 here of this, going over this. Anything else you'd like to add about the race course?
No, I just wanted to, make sure and thank all our volunteers, from the people that go out the day before or the Friday before and sweep the intersections, to the, usually it's me marking it, or if I get someone to help me, to the fire departments and the agencies that, come out on their own time and police all the intersections, and then all the people standing at the corners and, trying to direct traffic. It's a pretty big event, and to do a 1-loop Olympic bike, we're out over 24 miles of rural roads. It takes a lot of people spread out over a large area, and we absolutely couldn't do it without all the volunteers that we do have. So I just kind of wanted to give a little shout out to them, to thank them for all that they do.
And I try to do the same with my race. And I try to do every time I'm in a race, thank every volunteer, because it isn't possible without them. So hey, the only thing I do got to say it on mic, just for my wife, she had asked me to say, can you please keep the awards at a posted time? We've missed them like 2 out of 4 years because you were going to do them at one time and did them early, or something happened and so forth. So, and I know that stuff comes up day of, but if my wife actually goes through and listens to this one, I have to, if I'm telling her I said it, I got to make sure I said it. So, yeah. I've never been in danger of winning the beaver, the stuffed beaver award, the overall, but I have gotten some age group awards, and they hang proudly on my wall. And I'm coming this year, and I hope to get another one. So, and like I said, I'm bringing my friend, my co-host here, John, up from Florida, where a hill is a bridge. So he's gonna have some fun this year.
Yeah, he'll have a little bit of rude awakening if he's coming up from a flat race area.
Well, flat and warm, and we joke, but I can't. This race is always wetsuit legal. I'm real curious to see how he acclimates to our water temps.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. We did have one year where it was a warm year, it was borderline, but we were wetsuit legal, but we're usually, 4 to 5 degrees below the wetsuit limit. But if he's coming from Florida, you know what it can get like up here. We've had a couple of years where it's been really hot and humid, and going across that dam and back is scenic and fun, and you can see a mile in each direction, and see your competition, but you're also out in the baking sun, where you have no shade. Reminds me a little bit of the Eagle Man race I did a few years ago, and that's a 13 miles without a single tree on it, dead flat. Not that bad, but you get a little taste of that. If it's a hot day, you can be exposed for quite a while.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. Well, hey, once again, I just want to thank you for coming on, being so generous with your time. And if anything else pops up, you want to come back on, let us know. Hey, just want to thank you for coming on and giving us this in-depth analysis here.
Yeah, and thank you for coming to our race for 9 years. And like I said, we'll make sure and put a link on the Damn Tri website to your website with all your podcasts about all your other races. And we really appreciate the kind words you said about it.
Hey, not a problem. You put on a good event. I'd like to get the word out there. So thank you so much.
Sounds great. We'll see you in June.
Hey, thank you. Well, John, what did you think of that course recap between Kristoph and myself?
Well, I find it very interesting. I hope everybody else does too. The first part, was really good. I thought, when just hearing the history of the race and everything like that. But I did like the back end, the turn to turn stuff. It's very interesting. It gives me a good idea what I'm going to be up against.
Yeah, and if you just listen to it there, we did do the turn by turn on the bike, and when I say not so much on the run, because it's you're running in a state park. It's not like you're running through a city, Pittsburgh, New York, wherever, where it's turn left on this street, turn right here. It's a combination of, when I'm not saying unmarked roads, they're like driveways and parking lots and trails ish, So it's very well marked, and it's not something you're really going to be able to go out ahead of time on Map My Run and make it yourself. But as of when this is going to be going up, they've always have the course mapped up there. So if you really want to see make your own elevation profile, let's say on Map My Run, you can put them side by side. You can use the map that they're showing you, and you can, you can really map it out accordingly.
Yeah. No, I liked it a lot. Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to the race. I'm trying to figure out the logistics still, but I'm looking forward to it. So I'm going to hit the hills hard after St. Anthony's is done. So I'm ready.
You say hills like plural, like you have more than one. You're going to hit the hill.
The hill repeatedly. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, John. I had to pick.
Well, that's true. It's true. We had. I could talk about it here real quick. We had another client of mine did the Claremont race, the Intimidator, and he's only doing the relay, the bike part. And I'm sitting here following him on Facebook Live, and it's like he's about half. He's got like 12 miles left. And he's only got like 794 feet of climbing in, which is not what I expected. So I'm looking at it. I said, "Oh, I know what they're doing. They're sending him up Sugarloaf at the end of the race."
Oh, isn't that nice of them?
So in that he ended up with over 1,500 feet of climbing. But I'm telling you, with 12 miles left, he had 794. So he had 700.
It's all, not all, but half of it was in the last
12 miles. That's just rotten, isn't it?
A little bit.
So I haven't had a chance to really go over it with him yet. I just got a couple of comments. He said he felt like he had done a lot more than that. By the end of it, I said, "Yeah, he stuck it all at the end of the race. You're tired by then." But he did really well. But I think it was a good shock to his system. He needed it, and it'll show him what he's going to be facing in Ironman in Ireland. So
yeah,
so
cool,
good. So yeah, it was good. It was a good show. It was good recap. I think people are going to like it.
I hope they do. And, you know, what if they don't? This is just a little something that was a pet project of mine. Like I said, I like the race, and he was very accommodating to come on and give us his time and the information here. And I hope it gets some people intrigued to maybe want to come out and do it. Mm-hmm. If not this year, maybe down the road. And, you know, yeah, hey, so I wanted to do it. Appreciate you letting me have that opportunity here.
Absolutely. And I have to say that someone has agreed to donate my tri-kit for that race, because I can't afford Yes, I can't afford my own stuff. That's basically what it is. So yes, I will be rocking that race in a teamE4E tri-kit.
That is news to me.
I just found out yesterday.
That is congratulations and good job for you. And I had said previously, if anyone ever had one and they wanted me to ship it up, I would gladly wear one. But I typically race 99% of our races in my Team Doreen, the memorial team for my mother-in-law. And I knew that. 99% chance I'm rocking that one. Yeah. But not to say I won't have a teamE4E shirt hanging around as well. So.
Well, I knew that. I knew that. That's why I didn't even go there. But I thought if I do something like that, one of us needs to be rocking it, you know. So
yeah,
yeah.
Well, there we go. You can fly the flag loud and proud, John.
There you go. My big orange kit.
I'm gonna refrain from the jokes I've made previously.
There you go. Okay. All right, man.
Cool.
So
hey, sounds good. Until next week, huh?
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to the Endurance for Everyone podcast. If you have comments or questions for the show, send an email to teamE4E@enduranceforeveryone.com. And remember, swim calm, bike strong, and run steady.